don't know when you have to tell me when to go.
Go.
We have the phone turned around the other way now so I don't get my numbers. All right. So in this series of talks that we have been doing, we have been moving to a place of higher love, as so beautifully expressed in that song, Higher Love. We are setting a course for an evolved future and taking a deep look at our role in it. The reading today was so perfect because this is all about evolution also. So let us remember that the universe can only evolve through us. That's the way it evolves. You and I are the vehicles through which the manifest God can take the next step. And by manifest God, that's the infinite one consciousness of all that is. And we are pure consciousness. Everyone is. So, as I said last week, there has never been a better time to be a catalyst for the enlightenment of humanity. It is a job not for the weak of heart, that I will say. To stand in our truth no matter what. To shine our lights no matter what. That's us, and that's how we evolve. But we also at the same time must be grounded in our spiritual truths. We can't forget them for a moment, because circumstances might direct us to think otherwise. But we bring ourselves back. Andrew Cohen, in his book that I have been quoting, is called Evolutionary Enlightenment. He sets forth 5 tenets of evolution. And we've explored 2 already. And today we're going to do 2 more. We're going to do 3 and 4. So before we move forward, we're going to do a brief backup. We're going to review the first 2 tenets. So the first one, this was the beginning of January, this one came about. The clarity of intention. Number 1, the clarity of intention. The first tenet of evolutionary enlightenment is the idea that there is true power in our clarity and intention. There really is. But we have to be clear. And it's not just been any intention, it's the intention of our evolution. How we are always evolving. So that's so key to begin anything in life, but to begin in this series. And the intention to evolve, the clear, focused intention to live from our authentic self, that God's self, that pure consciousness within us. It can't go anywhere. It is who we are. There's only one consciousness, one life. And we are pure consciousness. So what we intend with great clarity must come forth in our lives. It's the way it works. To deepen into God consciousness, which means to deepen into the who and what we are. Pure consciousness, as I said, brings us to the second. Power of volition, which is choice, free will. So the second tenet of evolutionary enlightenment is the power of choice, volition. And I called it, and we spoke of it last week, the power of taking responsibility. Not just for something, but for everything. This tenet asks us to be responsible for nothing less than the destiny of the evolutionary process. It moves through us. We're not separate. It moves through us, here and now, as ourselves. Now we're going to look at 2 more tenets today. And the first is evolutionary evolutionary enlightenment is a tough one. Face everything and avoid nothing. Woo. That's a big one, right? But if we're all in this together, so, you know, we all take responsibility. This tenet points us to the potential to experience what Andrew Cohen calls unobstructed awareness. Unobstructed awareness. And he writes this: if you are bold in your spiritual intention, and if you dare to heroically aspire to take responsibility for evolution's next step, you simply cannot afford to have your awareness obscured by the ego's need to avoid. Indeed, for those of us who have awakened to the impulse to evolve and who understand, at least to some degree, that the destiny of the interior of the cosmos, all that is dependent upon our conscious evolution. This is still Cohen. Cultivating clarity, transparency, and inner freedom become a matter of great urgency. Great urgency. If you are deeply committed to the evolutionary endeavor, you will want to face everything and avoid nothing. Because the last thing you want to do is act out of some unconscious motive in a way that could obstruct your own higher development. Very important. Very important. That's quite a mouthful and quite a mindful. It's very expansive, especially when you really get deep into the interior of your own being. It is so, it like twists the mind sometimes. You know, it's like when Dana and I, as you can hear from her writing, I'm studying and in the same class together, and it's all about evolution. It's all about quantum physics, and it can twist our mind because it is stepping into something new, something that is so necessary because we are evolving, and as we evolve, humanity, humankind evolves. And the divine, all God that is, evolves. So everything is evolving through us, as us. So what does it mean to face everything and avoid nothing? How many of us has spent any time with our heads buried in the sand? How many of us want to spend some time with our heads buried in the sand? I know I do, but I don't. You know, it's because I gotta know what's going on. I gotta know what's going on. So, you know, I can't take the appropriate actions in my life if I don't know what's going on. You know, even if it's confusing, because it is confusing. So everyone's saying something different here, there, media, TV, everything. Well, media is TV, but all of it can be confusing. But it's up to us. When that happens, okay, we're aware something's happening, evolution is taking place. We have to come back and regroup within ourselves, within our own minds, and just take responsibility for what we are thinking, how we are reacting or responding. That's up to us, and we are evolving. If nothing else, in this entire environment of this country today, we are evolving. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that, but we are. We are evolving. So we want to take a hard look at, maybe we don't want to. We don't want to we don't want to face a lot of things. We don't want to take a hard look at someone else's behavior, because it might mean that we need to make some changes within ourselves. And that might mean that we have to take a deeper look within ourselves. And it might mean, if it's a relationship, it might mean leaving that relationship. That's what it might mean, to truly evolve. Sometimes, if we're in relationships that don't work, sometimes we need to be courageous, it takes a lot of courage, to step out of that relationship if it's holding us back, if it's out of integrity. I know people that won't look at their checkbooks because they don't want to find out what the balance is. Yeah, I used to be one of them, I know. Because we don't want to, because oh my gosh, what if it's not at this certain, but we don't know because we don't look at our checkbook, right? For those people that don't look at their checkbooks. Because we might think there's some bad news involved, or we might need to take a hard look at ourselves and how our feelings, our emotions, and how we can bring them to a sense of peace and clarity and order and well-being. That's the responsibility. We can't face nothing. We can't bury our head in we can try, but it doesn't solve anything. We don't evolve. In The Power of Receiving, author Amanda Owens suggests that we receive everything and decide later. Sounds a little easier. She writes that this means we receive all the data from our environment, including the inner environment of our feelings, and then we can decide later what we want to do or what we have received. We don't have to look at it at that moment, but we can receive it, store it away, and then when it's time to really go deep into it, then we can. Opening up your receptors helps you to be better informed about what you do and do not want to experience in this life. It makes it clear. The more you receive, the more likely you will make appropriate choices. And it takes courage to be honest with yourself, to really be honest with yourself. It can be painful to fully experience your feelings about an unrewarding job or the effects of a destructive relationship, a government that is either working or not working for you. Although I would say, don't be glued to the TV. Just become aware and informed. That's all you got to do, because it can be very addictive. When we adopt the attitude to receive everything and decide later, or face everything and avoid nothing, either one, we will, and this is according to Andrew Cohen, no longer be afraid to stand tall before your own conscience or before others. This is because you are no longer hiding anything from yourself. Through this noble practice, you will cultivate integrity, he says, and discover the kind of soul strength that only comes from fearlessly facing the truth. The instinctive defense mechanisms that the ego hides behind will crumble. And yourself, your soul, will become transparent. Transparent vehicles through which, I'm still reading the evolutionary impulse can work in this world. When we evolve, we are expanding. We are becoming more of. It's kind of difficult not to become aware of everything that's going on because of the fast-paced shift in social media and the way that we are receiving all of our information, which is right on our devices. I mean, it's nonstop. We're getting so much information all at the same time. Never happened before on this planet that we know of. Never happened before. So we can feel a little overwhelmed. We sure can. When we evolve, we are expanding our consciousness, and we're expanding the God consciousness, one and the same. Since we believe in oneness, in unity, and no separation, everything is part of the whole. And that's our teachings, and we got to remember it when we don't want to remember it. It's part of what our teachings are. It can't be what part of the whole only when everything's going this way. It's what part of the whole no matter what. Tenet 4, the process perspective. Ernest Holmes once wrote a very famous quote in The Science of Mind: "Our faith does not burst forth fully orbed." It can't. It's a process, right? Well, neither does our enlightenment. In fact, it is a process, more than an idea that our enlightenment is a process. We are a process. We are always, we're not the same people we were a month ago, a year ago, 10 years ago. Are we the same people? No. We can't be. We're always evolving. The fourth tenet, then, is the process perspective. And Cohen writes, it points us directly to the liberating viewpoint that emerges when we see every aspect of our human experience as part and parcel of the vast cosmic process. The fourth tenet compels us to break through the habit of compulsive personalization. That's a real one. My mouth is dry too. Compulsive personalization, which is what we do. Everything affects us and becomes ours. And then we make up stories about it. That's what we do. Some of them, this is still going, that so many of us are painfully trapped in. When we look through the lens of the fourth tenet, we realize that all events and experiences, all of them, are both internal and external. Whatever is going on around us is also going on within us. We are the observer. We are always the observer. I could go into that. We are products of the evolutionary process, and we see all the events and the experiences from the perspective of that process rather than the vantage point of our personal ego. We don't have to judge everything, although we have that tendency. But it doesn't really do too much good for us. We view everything as an evolutionary movement. So sometimes it's tougher than other times, and I say just hang in there. Just hang in there and you'll see. And again, Cohen writes, through practicing the fourth tenet, we discover the liberating truth that life is not a personal drama, but an evolutionary process. The whole point of this tenet is to realize that who you are and who I am is not limited to a personal sphere. When we discover this enlightened truth, it will change the way that we interpret and respond to the many different dimensions of our humanity. We will still be who we are. We're always going to be who we are, but maybe a better version of who we are, a different version of who we are, with our hopes, our dreams, our desires, our emotions, joys, sorrows, suffering, all of it. That's who we are as human beings. We have all of those feelings, and they're not going to go away while we're in this body. When we can see our personal lives and experiences from the perspective of a higher cosmic process, there will be space around all of those circumstances and situations. And it is in that space that we can make really informed choices about how we want to handle it. How do we want to respond to this? How do we want to move forward? So we are always, I can't say it enough, we are always evolving. Let us realize that we are evolving together. We are all evolving together. It's true. That's what we teach. Cohen writes again, as we discover the impersonal energy and intelligence that is driving the creative process, we will find a higher, spiritually inspired passion. And care does not begin to inform and transform our personal life. Oh, it does begin to inform and transform our personal lives. Our intimate relationships, he says, and the culture we share and co-create with others. We are all multidimensional beings, simultaneously expressions of the God impulse and embodied, living, breathing humans. And as we awaken to our own higher dimension and spiritual capacities, we begin to understand that our embodiment, conscious engagement with life and with each other is the interior of the vast cosmic evolving. Nothing is ever outside of it. That's the process perspective. Are you all with me?
Yes.
Oh, good. A bunch of really smart people. Very evolved people. So, who remembers your mission for the month? If you were here the first week in January, if you can remember back that far, we did a whole process where we got clarity around our intention to evolve. And if you don't remember it, you can think of another one right now. That's the mission, to evolve. As you contemplate these tenets, as you think about them, as you put them into play in your life, I'm going to do a little process. What happens? Think about this. So I want you to take this into the visualization we're going to do. What comes up for you? So get clear on your intention. How does your life shift? What questions bubble up? So I'm going to close our eyes this morning. Take a nice deep breath. See with your mind's eye an upward spiral. This is the spiral of evolution. See yourself and about 1 million of your fellow travelers on this journey through time and space, all standing together at the base of a new upward revolution around the spiral. You are not standing at the beginning of the spiritual evolution, nor at the end. In fact, there probably isn't a beginning or an end, but rather somewhere in the middle. Somewhere in the middle of the spiral evolution that we're always moving around the spiral dynamics. You and a million others like you stand there with the deepest and clearest intent to make that revolution up and around to the next level. It's what your heart really longs for. It is what you yearn for. Feel that longing, that desire in your heart. Feel it right now. Drop to the heart. Heart doesn't want to be stagnant. Heart wants movement. The universe wants movement. It is movement. Nothing stands still. And in that deep, deep desire to take this trip upward, you are personally and absolutely aware of the individual responsibility in bringing this evolution about. It's not someone else's job. It is your job. Breathe that in. It's your job. And you know that right now there is something that you have not been wanting to look at. Something you've been maybe avoiding. That is standing in the way of the revolution around the upward spiral. And in this safe and sacred and holy place, take a look at it right now, just for a moment. Just take a look at it with love. Remembering that love is the energy that glues the universe together. It's glue, energy glue, love. Bring a higher love to it right now. And be willing to look at it. And let yourself be brought to a place in consciousness or a new place in activity or behavior around it. Invite a higher decision to be made right now. And finally, take a couple of steps back from your individual life. And look at it in the context of the spiral that you are on. See every scene, every activity, every occurrence, everything that has occurred up until now, and that will occur in the future. See it as part of not just your evolution, but the evolution of humankind. And see yourself right now as a key element in the entire process of this evolution. We are each of the Great Spirit, the infinite consciousness, bigger, so much bigger than any particular human experience, and yet it is through the human experience that the divine, the great I am, the infinite consciousness expresses itself. It expresses itself through us, as us, and it's always with us. So nothing can harm us, not really, not really. And we give thanks. We give thanks for every experience in our lives. We give thanks for all that was, all that will ever be. Because we are going to say and claim it is all good. Even if it doesn't look that way, it still is all good. It can't be all good some of the time. All means all of the time. It's all good because it's all divine. And so it is.